This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
All right, let's do this thing. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Hey, so, Bob, did you check out the salon?
Yeah, not much there. There's some coffee pods and some chips.
Yeah, there's no luck over in the garage or the workshop. We cleaned that area out, too.
Damn, our lockdown supplies are running low.
Well, that leaves us no other choice then.
I know. All right, I'll make the call. Give me a second. Okay. Hey, Rob, I know you're busy and all running the network and stuff, but we're running low on supplies here. No, we checked there. Nope, there too. No, man, we're just playing out. We've been like locked up in the house misdirected since March. Yeah. No, that'll totally work. Yeah, I'll let the guys know. Okay, cool, thanks. All right, guys, I talked to Rob. He said he can put more money on our Tim Hortons app.
Yeah, buddy. It's donuts and coffee for everybody.
Okay, I'll put in the order. One large iced coffee, one large London fog.
Yeah, while he does that, I'm going to do this. Welcome to the 401st episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Tonight, we're going to talk about patrons, those NPCs that hook you up. After that, we're going to slide into the conversation corner to talk about what's going on in our lives. But first, his name is Jerry.
His name is Phil.
And his name is Bob.
Oh, Bob.
Old man Logan.
Oh, man. Welcome to the shoe, everybody.
Quick temperature check. How's everybody doing? Healthy?
Feeling good. Got to watch Crawl last year for my birthday.
Oh, no, that's one thing.
That's it.
Temperature check.
Good.
Feeling good?
I'm feeling good.
Mentally good?
I'm feeling good, mentally good, physically good.
Bob?
Yeah, a little tired today, but otherwise not bad.
Good. I'm feeling a little tired myself. Just not depression-wise, just literally I could sleep another hour somewhere. But otherwise good myself, feeling healthy. Good. All right. Since we've all checked our temperatures and good to begin the show, let's start with our one thing. Jerry, go ahead. And by the way, happy belated birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Jerry.
Yeah, last night for our birthday, we just do what we normally do, which is sit around and curl up and watch a movie together. We watched Crawl. And I forgot how much fun a well-directed monster movie can be. This is a movie that was produced by Sam Raimi, directed by Andre Aja, who did Ignore the Hills or Ignore High Tension. This was like Hills Have Eyes. It was well done, well-paced, and they tossed a couple of tropes on their head, which I like. But then I got to the end of the night and ate way too much ice cream cake, which I felt this morning.
What is too much ice cream cake?
Well, I had a late lunch, so I didn't actually eat dinner last night. So dinner was at 10 o'clock at night, where I ate a bowl of ice cream cake without really realizing how much I was eating.
Nice.
So,
no regrets.
So the only thing in my stomach this morning when I woke up was ice cream cake.
What kind of ice cream cake was it? Was it the kind with the crunchy bits in the middle?
Oh, of course. It's the only kind that you get. It was Carvel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was Carvel. It was Cookie
Fudgy the Whale.
Or Cookie Puss, your choice.
Or Cookie Opus for St. Patrick's Day.
I don't. So you guys, I grew up downstate where Carvel is. Carvel is like Anderson's down there.
Yeah.
So they're like the old Tom Carvel commercials. He used to do his own commercials.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God!
And he's got this really gravelly voice, right? So he's all just like, "I'm Tom Carvel, and this Valentine's Day, get Cookie O Cupid." It was just always.
There should be a law that states that someone in marketing, their sole job is to do whatever they can to make sure the owner of the company does not do his own commercials.
Yeah, absolutely.
That should be a thing.
Wait. Well, that worked really well for Tom in Wendy's. He did a great job. But no, yeah, we had those commercials up here with Cookie Puss. I mean, I'll tell you, it was 2 years before I realized that Cookie Puss was just Fudgy the Whale turned 90 degrees.
Wait a
Cutting corners.
second.
Well,
Hey,
yeah, we had Dairy Queen and Carvel up here. Bob, how you doing?
Dairy Queen. Yeah, so I finally sat down and watched the Old Guard yesterday because everybody was like, "Oh my God, the Old Guard, the Old Guard, the Old Guard."
And I was waiting for you to yell at me. I've been like bugging you for a while.
It wasn't like super overt bugging, so you had to go a little further before I would get all indignant. But yeah, watched it and it gave me the John Wick feeling,
right?
Which means I came out of that movie and I was like, "That was way better than it had any right to be." And where's my sequel?
Right? Oh, it's what you call it? It's so
it's a good film.
Oh, it's so good. It's not for the faint of heart though. Like,
no, there's some really good special effects in there for when people get shot in lots of different ways.
There's some graphic violence in that movie.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like, I thought it was fantastic. The characters, I don't want to give anything away about this movie, but
Yes.
the characters are wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I liked everybody, and I liked everything about it. And I know because I bestowed it the highest honor I have for a movie, which is, could I play this as a game?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Right.
You totally play that.
That is a very gameable movie.
Yes.
All the way around.
There's also a moment at the end where I thought to myself, man, this could be like one of those pilots for a TV show. Like, it feels like
dude, it totally felt like if you like this, wait till fall when the 12 episodes drop.
Yeah. I was getting I was expecting, like, in my head, my brain was going, okay, now here comes the theme song for the TV show by Mike Post and Pete Carpenter. And it's produced by Stephen J. Cannell.
Yes. Yeah. You
got to remember, though, it's based on a graphic novel. And so that's the one thing of a lot of the stuff being directed by and based on a lot of comic books now is that they have that short, tight story arc that then leads to a longer series kind of thing. And it works.
I would totally watch it. I will watch it as a sequel. I will watch it as a series. I will watch it again.
Yep.
Just to watch it again. In fact, I'm watching it again this weekend.
I would watch it with a mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Phil, what's your one thing?
In a plane.
What's your one thing, Phil?
My one thing, today I finished watching Deep Space Nine. So I did not watch it in order because I didn't start out planning to do a full watch of the Deep Space Nine. So I started season 3, episode 8, I think, Civil Defense, the one where the ore processing plant goes online. If you don't remember it. Anyway, so then I just started watching it because it was like pandemic. And so I finished the series. I got all the way to the end of season 7. And then I was like, I really should just complete this thing. So I went back around to episode 1 and I watched all the way to the end of season 3, episode 7. So I looped it. 176 episodes. It was in places better than I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in most places, it was better than I remember. Like, the early stuff was better than I remember. And the latter stuff was even better than I remember.
Yeah.
Like, my second, that was a full rewatching. And I was very pleased. Like, even the weakest episodes on there are still, there's one really bad one, but short of that one, the kids game one. Yeah. Which will not be in our list.
I did a complete rewatch of that like last summer or last spring, and it's so good, that show. Yeah,
so I'm very excited because as we finish up TNG, I will be getting the DS9. I will be getting the DS9 list in order. It is a much longer list. It's going to be much longer.
Well, we're not going anywhere, so
we're not going anywhere anytime soon. So we're going to keep trucking through it. Anyway, that's my one thing. DS9, thoroughly enjoyed it. I was a little sad when the next episode button did not come up.
Yeah,
like it just all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's it. Like that's the end of the series for me. Like, Wow.
So are you going to collate a Voyager or Enterprise thing like that also?
I'm going into Voyager next. The Voyager is one that I never gave it a fair shot. So
Yeah, I need to give Voyager a watch.
I'm going to just go into it knowing that it's not Deep Space Nine, and I'm just going to I'm going to give it love, and I'm going to I'm just going to give it a good solid watch, and I'll like what I like and whatever. But I will also be starting the future Voyager list.
There you go.
That one to me is not as critical for running Star Trek Adventures later because of how Voyager is set up.
Yeah.
Where Deep Space Nine is very important to me.
Yeah.
For running Star Trek Adventures because so much stuff that happens in the Alpha and the Beta Quadrant happen because of that show.
Yep.
So is the Voyager larger or smaller than the Enterprise?
Voyager's smaller than a Galaxy class ship.
Yeah.
The Galaxy class ship is enormous. Like it's sometimes when you don't see it in scale, it's enormous. If you look at the scaling of the original Enterprise next to the Galaxy, like it could eat it.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it's very misleading because the lights look like they should be windows, and when you look at them, I look at them. I'm like, those have got to be like 80-foot wide windows to have 1,000 people on that ship, that kind of thing. And so I'm not sure what I'm looking at until I see something in scale next to it.
Yeah.
Galaxy
it is deceptively big.
The Galaxy is by no means a tiny ship. Like she's a big ship.
When we get to the after show, I'm going to ask you some questions about Klingon ships versus Federation ships. Because watching this series this week, I saw some things that maybe have some questions. Just from a gaming tactical standpoint. But that's after show. So, all right.
All right. So, announcements.
Yeah, announcements. Sorry, I'm still looking at size comparisons for the ships. But anyway, announcements. We are beginning week 8 of our TNG Watch Club, so 2 months in. Week 8, I think, is still firmly rooted in season 6. We're going to start with tonight with a very powerful pair of episodes. And we have a short week this week. We only have a total of 5 episodes this week because season 6 is so good that I can't give us a whole bunch of episodes because there's so many I want to watch in the watch party with people. So we're going to do 2 really powerful episodes. We got 3 other episodes, ending with another one of my top 10 Star Trek episodes, which is Tapestry. Easily my top 10. Fantastic episode. And then, we'll pick it up again. We are going to, in the next week or two, I think it's in the next week or two, the crossover with Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
So our TNG people who are in the Watch Club who've never seen Deep Space Nine are going to get their first peek at some of the characters from Deep Space Nine when we do the crossover. So
are we doing the crossover with the TOS episode? Is that one of the ones we're going to watch or not?
No. The old series.
That's DS9. That's right.
DS9 has 2 old series episodes that we actually have to watch as part of the watch party.
That's cool.
I'll be prepping those as well. So anyway, if you are interested in catching the remaining seasons of Next Gen, which is season 6 and 7, or the next, I think, probably 4 weeks worth of watching, you can just jump into the forums.
Yeah. Go
to the other section. There's a whole busy section on Star Trek Watch Party, and catch us there. And if you're like, I've done the TNG thing, but I really want to get in on the DS9, that's going to be coming around late August, early September.
Yep.
Based on the timing of the end of the TNG Watch Club, the DS9 Watch Club is going to pick up, I think, almost right after it. And so I think that's going to be end of August.
Cool.
So if you want to meet us for Deep Space Nine, we would love that.
All right. All right, Phil, get a sip of water.
Oh, hang on. Yeah.
Get ready.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, all right, let's do this.
Patrons Workshop! The patron's going to give you stuff to go do stuff for them. The patron's going to help you. Patron's going to make the stuff go and make the plot go forward. Patrons Workshop.
Don't suck.
So this week we're going to talk about patrons. I actually originally set this into a Pandas as a topic suggestion last year, but it never quite made it into a show. So now that I'm here, we're going to make it into a topic for Misdirected Mark. For me, I have a lot of feelings about this. I've played in a lot of games lately that have had patrons, and we'll talk about the good, bad of how they work in the second half of the segment. But for now, let's get this ball rolling. We should have Phil do what he does best. Define what a patron is.
Ooh.
Behold, you are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a couple definitions for patron, for starters. So the first one, which I really like, is a person who gives financial or other support to a person, organization, cause, or activity. I really like that one. I think that one's solid. The other one, which I wanted to include just for the sake of being complete, is a customer, especially a regular one of a store, restaurant, or theater. But in both of these definitions, the patron is someone who is supporting someone, and most likely financially. I like so in the first definition, that's someone who is supporting someone to do something, right? Like the patron is providing their support in order for somebody to be able to do something. And the second definition is a little more transactional, right? Like they're giving money to get something, right? They're a patron, but they're a patron as in terms of like consumer.
And in RPGs, this goes a little further because patrons can serve either of these definitions. They support the characters in the party with their patronage. And we're going to talk tonight about that first definition, a person who gives financially or other support to a person, organization, cause, or activity. Because this is the more interesting version of the patron. It extends just beyond them as a client and actually expresses how they're going to interact with the players on a regular basis.
Yeah, so in many games, I won't say all games, but in many games, your patron's going to be an NPC that's going to be defined like as someone who has more power, access, and wealth than the characters. They can have a number of components. You don't really have to detail these all up front. You don't even have to detail all of them as you're making up your patron. But I think if you name some of them early on and fill in the rest as like if you're keeping the patron around in your campaign, I think it makes the patrons more interesting. So let's just truck through some of these, right? So a patron can have a history.
For example, Lady Brack amassed their wealth through adventuring, but after a curse withered her sword hand, she retired from the adventuring life. Yeah,
right. Like that's going to make that character more rounded, more interesting.
Yeah.
They can have personalities. They probably should if they're going to be an NPC in the game, because they're going to be interacting with the player characters.
For example, Salon Voss is a wealthy merchant and a successful businessman, and he rarely lets anyone control the conversation.
Sure. Could be a lot of fun in a scene trying to talk your way through Voss.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have a motivation to be a patron, right? So there's something that they want or need that is making them use the assets they have and giving them to the players, right? So based on their motivation, they may make specific demands of a character from time to time. Like they may want something very specific, or as a patron, they may be supporting like more of a cause, right? And so their motivation could be completely selfless.
For example, Salon Voss has seen the overreach of the Imperium and what they do. So he's the patron of a group of mercenaries who make retaliatory strikes on the Imperium troops.
Yeah, like that could be just pretty broad, right? Like that group could be calling their own shots, but just, Voss is, hooking them up, right?
Yep.
The motivation could be very selfish, like as in the patron wants something and is willing to spend money to get it.
For example, if we have Lady Brack, maybe she's going to pay adventurers to find out information about the Violet Lich, so that she can one day hunt her down and have her put to death.
Sure.
And that's revenge for what she did to her hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, because she has a history, right? There's something we know, like those things connect together. And those aren't things you have to initially share with the players at all, right? Like that's stuff that can come out later. You could put it out on the table early on, right? But again, it's the kind of thing that as you're growing your NPC over time, these are kind of the things you can help, unfold.
I think that it works best. A lot of patrons are better if they've got a secret or two that doesn't come out until later on in the story to give the players something to work against or work with.
Yeah, and something that later they can connect to and be like, oh, okay, cool, get it.
Yep.
The patron is going to have resources that they can provide.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about these in a little more detail. But they can be things like money, equipment, information, access to things. Like that could be access into a building, to a planet, to a group, whatever. Could be contacts. This patron knows people that they can then hook up. They could hook people up with.
Those are sort of my favorites. For example, though, in addition to the credits, Salon Voss has a large interstellar shipping company. And he's going to provide transportation for those he supports anywhere in the galaxy. What this means is that the heroes don't have to worry about getting into a ship. The GM has the means to get the characters anywhere they're needed for the adventure. They don't have to worry about that. The GM has a hook, and the players have a resource that they can both use to streamline the game.
Yes, exactly, right? And the patron may have rules for those that accept their support.
For example, if players start to work for Lady Brack, she will allow adventurers she hires to keep any treasure they found, with the exception of any items owned by the Violet Lich or her henchmen.
Yeah. Might need them for some scrying or something, right? So,
and those are often the best things that can cause some fun for the players. Is do they want to give up their best treasure?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so cool. So now that we have an idea of what a patron is in terms of like the NPC, let's dive in deeper about what they actually can do to help.
So, a couple of ways that patrons can help. Number one, the goal of the patron in a role-playing game is going to be to facilitate the players undertaking adventures or missions that are part of the situation in the game, and they're going to eventually advance the campaign or story. That should always be the main goal of the patron. So to be helpful, the patrons are going to make some things easier for the players, and that's okay. They don't have to make everything easier, otherwise they're just taking the challenge away. But it's okay for them to have some things that are less important for the actual gameplay to simply be skipped over or to streamline unless the players really want to play that part out. In fact, working for a patron can occasionally add different challenges and difficulties, especially if the patron decides that they're going to let the players do this thing, but then has a requirement for them. You could do this, but I need you to do it in a certain way, or I need you to do it without killing anybody, that sort of thing. So that all adds in. When using a patron, though, the GM should look at what the adventure entails and then decide what the patron's going to provide for that adventure.
Yeah, and, sometimes this might be airtight, like the patron, tells you what the deal is and the players are like, cool, thank you, and then they go on their way. Or it could be the kind of thing where the relationship is such that there's some room for negotiation.
Mm-hmm. And there are going to be several things that the patron can actually provide to the group.
Right. So a patron can provide things that allow you to skip past a problem or a challenge in the game. Mm-hmm. They can provide things to make a problem or a challenge easier.
They can also be a source of problems to be overcome as part of the story. They can provide something for future use, like rewards or resources. And they can be a tool for the players to spawn their own hooks in their own adventures.
Absolutely. So I think the best way to kind of give this a little more depth is to actually do this by example with a adventure mission and a patron. So I'm going to just quickly whip this up. This is going to be a fantasy world. And we're going to use our patron Lady Brack as the patron to our adventuring band of player characters. Mm-hmm. And the mission is going to be to find the keep of Plagra, the wizard, the plague wizard, break into the keep, slay the wizard, and recover the tome written by the Violet Lich, the musings on death and decay. Okay, so given the idea that this is going to be a break-in and obtain item, we can, as if we were prepping any adventure, we can break this down into a number of objectives.
So first of all, players are going to need to find the keep. Once they find it, they actually have to get to it. Once they get to it, they have to enter it, whether they sneak in or whether they knock on the doors and fight their way through. Once they're inside, they're going to have to deal with the wizard's henchmen. Once they get to the top, they're going to have to deal with Blagra, the plague wizard herself. And then once she's done, they've got to locate the tome. So there's a lot of different minor objectives that have to be overcome for this adventure to work. But not all of them are super important.
Yeah. I mean, not all of them are super important. Not all of them might even be fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they probably could all be fun if you invest a bunch of time into it. But knowing your group, there's probably, you could circle the ones on here that are going to be more fun for your group than not. Mm-hmm. So as the GM doing prep, you can now look at these objectives and you can decide what things the patron can provide.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, things we can skip past. In our previous example, Lady Brack knows where the keep is. So you don't have to worry about trying to find the keep. Lady Brack's going to tell you where it is. Second of all, Lady Brack might have the magic to teleport the adventurers to a town near the keep. This skips the whole travel time getting the keep, worrying about what we're going to name the pony and that sort of thing. This gets them right to the keep itself. And
you still got to name the pony, Jerry.
No, you don't. No, you do not, Bob. Never name something you might have to eat later. And lastly, you can teleport. It's a quote from Warhammer. Unless you can teleport, you can maybe even teleport them directly into the courtyard. And skip even having to do the entering part. If the players want to get right into the fight, you can avoid all of the sneaking around part and just put them right into the meat grinder itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
All those are different options, and you can use some, all, or none of them based on what your players want to do, but you've got the resources to do so.
Yeah. In addition to that, the patron could make things easier, as we said, right? So Lady Brack knows where Polara's estranged lover lives, making finding the keep easier, right? So it doesn't give you the location of the keep, but now the patron puts you on the path of how to find the keep.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Brack has a disc of scrying that allows the heroes to see inside the keep that she will give them for the adventure, right? That makes entering the keep easier if they can scan the keep, and figure out where the guards are and are not.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Brack might have a scroll of disease protection, which will make fighting the wizard easier. And again, just like before, we could decide to give none of these, all of these, or some of these, or other ones, right? Like, however we want to, wherever we want to make things easier.
So, the next one we're talking about is a little bit, how can a patron be a source of problems to overcome? Maybe the Violet Lich knows that Lady Brack is looking to search out her former lover, so she has spies watching their keep, ready to attack anybody who comes looking. Or maybe the players have to take a diversion from another mission to protect Lady Brack herself. That gives another side mission you can use that all gets tied in based on what the players want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Lady Brack could also give them something for future use, right? So there's, do this mission for me, and she will owe them a favor that they can cash in the future for maybe their own purposes. Like maybe this group does not always, this campaign's not structured to only take jobs from Lady Brack. Like they're doing their own adventuring, and then from time to time, Lady Brack summons them and gives them a mission. So maybe in those in-between times, they have a favor from a very powerful person that they can cash in for their own purposes.
It's good to have favors you can cash in.
Yeah, especially when the players go off book a little bit and get in the trouble that they weren't planning for and you weren't planning for. Now they've got some way that they can leverage the advantage to get themselves out of it, or at least make things better for them.
Yep.
And lastly, they can be a tool for the players to spawn their own hooks. So, for example, if the wizard of the party learned from an archwizard who was imprisoned by Polara, now they have another reason to get in there. And that might give them a secondary mission. Maybe their goal is to rescue their former mentor, and getting the tome is less important.
It's definitely going to be the focus of the wizard of the party, right? Like,
Yeah.
The rest of the group might be like, "Hey, we'll get the tome," and the wizard's like, "Cool, I'm gonna go find my former mentor."
And what happens when, of course, the former mentor is put in danger at the same time that the tome gets revealed?
Yes.
You must choose,
Yes.
but choose wisely.
We love those things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that's a pretty good way to kind of show how the patron can kind of shape the adventure, right? The outline of that adventure we gave was pretty straightforward. I mean, that's the if I'm whipping up an adventure, in a game store doing kind of a Day of Fate kind of event kind of thing. That's the quick outline I would have made, and we would have played to solve all of those things on that checklist. But the cool part about the patron is, by picking some of those things, the patron allows you to either enhance or skip parts of that outline. So then what we really get into is which ones do you use and how many of them do you use when you're using a patron for a game. And sadly, or maybe not sadly, expectedly, there's no hard and fast rule to this. But we do, because we would be remiss in our duties if we didn't at least have a few suggestions about how we think you should probably use your patron.
And we're just going to use a few from the list. You never have to use all of them or any of them. It's whatever's going to make sense for you as a GM.
I think you got to use at least one of them, right? Like the patron isn't really the patron if they don't kick in something.
Well, we're going to talk later on about what happens when you have a patron.
I'm sorry.
Isn't a patron.
I'm sorry. They're not a good patron unless they use at least one thing from this list.
Correct.
Okay.
I will be giving an example later on of what happens when an adventure is written with a patron is not a patron.
Okay, so fair enough.
Talk about that later.
So fair enough. So I think our answer for the first part of this is one or more,
yes,
but not all.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
I will. I will stand by that. I don't think 0 is a valid answer for this. Otherwise, it is a bad patron. Okay. Have the patron help skip things that are either not germane to the plot of the mission or is not really the focus of your group. So, for example, if your group of players are all fighters and no investigators, finding the keep is not the interesting part of the story for that group. So having the patron provide the location of the keep skips the investigation. Now, conversely, if your group is a group of serious investigators and kind of okay fighters, having the patron deliver extra troops when you assault the keep, but you have to go find the keep, puts the focus of the adventure on the part the players really enjoy, which is finding the keep, and then aids them in the part that they're not as good at, which is assaulting the keep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And lastly, you can have the patron make things easier when you as a GM want something to be tough, but are concerned that it may be too tough. For example, if you want the Plague Wizard to be a really hard fight, but when you look at them, you realize that they're that one bad move and it could be TPK for the party, you can have the patron give the party certain things that will give them a little bit more survivability as a one-shot without overpowering them for the rest of the campaign. And that makes it more interesting, and it still ends up being something the players get to use as their own resource to beat the bad guy instead of it being just a Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, I mean, like you're looking at the Plague Wizard spell list and you're like, all right, cool, this spell is awesome. But potentially, if everyone or most of them fail this save, it's going to wipe them out. I better, giving them some healing or a protection scroll or, something like that, will make it scary and tense, but also survivable. And also the players will be like, thank goodness we have this patron. Otherwise, she would have wiped us all out.
Of course, the fun thing to do there is have the evil wizard have an ability that causes a horrible rotting disease, and you have 5 players and give them 3 potions. See what they do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like not every I've got 3 of these potions. They're super rare, but you can have all 3.
Mm-hmm.
But there's 6 of you or 5 of you in the party.
Yep.
Plan accordingly.
Exactly.
But sometimes that's all you need, right? Because maybe the cleric's like, oh, I'm good. And the fighter's like, don't worry about me. My fortitude saves through the roof, right? But, the sickly thief or something is like, chug, 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 right? Like in hopes to make it through the encounter. Yeah.
And now they get to do more teamwork stuff, which is always better.
Yeah. Plus, it also makes hard decisions because if you give them 3 potions among the 5 of them, somebody's not taking it.
That's right.
So my preference is, and my preference about this is really the figure out what parts of the adventure are not interesting for your group or for you or whatever, or the system you're playing in or whatever, and have the patrons help you skip those parts. Like that just is a great way to be like, this story makes logical sense, but no, you don't have to do the boring parts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Now that we understand what goes into a patron and the basics on how to use them, we can now talk about
why use patrons in your game. So I will say that you could fit patrons into almost any game. And there's probably a few exceptions where patrons don't really work, but by and large, somebody who is more powerful, has more access, information, money, gear, or whatever, is probably useful in almost every gaming situation. But
I just thought of a game where everybody has a patron all the time.
Which is?
Paranoia.
Yes, friend computer is your patron. The problem in Paranoia is you have multiple patrons, right?
Yes.
You have a secret society. You have the group that you belong to, and friend computer.
Yes.
All is your patrons simultaneously, and none of them want the same thing.
Yep.
Man, I missed that game. That game's a fun game.
Yep.
Okay, so they do. So while I think you can fit them into almost any game, I think they suit certain types of games really well. And we are of course going to give some suggestions. Your mileage, of course, will vary.
Patrons work really well in games where the players are very low level, so the patrons can give them access to little things that the players are going to need to survive, or do this 1 or 2 cool things that they won't be able to do until later on, but you want for this adventure. They also work really well in games where the opposition either outclasses or outreaches the characters. If you've got a situation where the players are going up against a major corporation or anything, a big dragon or something like that, where they need some help. This is where the patron can give them the benefit they need to survive and go on.
I mean, we all saw Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
Like France is, the patron.
Well,
right?
I haven't actually seen Hamilton, so
you haven't seen Hamilton?
It's a 3 hours. I don't have 3 hours to watch it yet.
Oh, it's so good. The opening lines of George Washington. That's my favorite part. Anyway, sorry.
That's okay.
I digress.
I will watch it. And also, it's really good in games where the characters are new to the world of the situation, where the players are still learning. And this kind of ties into the next point, Bill.
Yeah, so they work well in games where players are unfamiliar with the setting or world, right? So the patron can not only give them stuff, but the patron can also give them advice and like general information, right? Mm-hmm. Which is super helpful because sometimes, and this happens a lot when you're running a game that has a really specific setting, and the players aren't really knowledgeable in it. And you need somebody to kind of guide them like little ducklings. Like, for instance, go back to the old days of Vampire, right? Having a sire is a form of patron, right? Both good and bad version of having a patron, depending on the sire. But a sire can do things like explain vampire politics to you before, like, you accidentally say something and get your head ripped off, right? Like,
right.
they're helpful in those kinds of things. Espionage, heist, or mission-based games obviously suit patrons.
Mm-hmm.
Ruben from Ocean's 11
Okay.
is a patron.
Yep.
Got it.
Right? Like
Got it.
his only purpose in the movie is to bankroll
Yep.
the rest of the crew to get the job done, right?
Yep.
So Ruben is a patron, and I will say, as patrons go, that is a patron with a lot of personality,
Mm-hmm.
a clear history,
Yep.
right? We know why Ruben, wants to do this. And in fact, he doesn't even want to do it at first until the guys reveal which casinos.
Yep.
So yes, those kinds of games are great for patrons.
Yep.
And finally, games that have powerful beings or organizations. This kind of goes up to the other bullet before, where the opposition outclasses or outreaches the players, right? Having a patron to kind of even the score. So earlier in our talk, Chromatic Chameleon had mentioned the Shadowrun Mr. Johnson, which is, I think, probably, it's a patron, all right. It's not always a good patron, right? Like Mr. Johnson can sometimes be helpful, useful, many times almost not useful, and then sometimes really bad.
That's the example of the patron that gives you problems to overcome.
Yes. But I will say this, there's another type of setup in Shadowrun or in Cyberpunk games where a corporate executive might hire a group of runners
Mm-hmm.
as their own private strike force.
Yep.
Like their own black ops team. And in which case, it's a little less than the transactional Mr. Johnson kind of thing, where it's like, hey, nameless corporation wants you to do this job against other corporation, and more like, hey, I'm making a play for a vice president position. I need you guys to do the following things for me. In return, here's some access to some cyberware.
Yep.
Right? Like those kinds of things. So there is definitely that kind of thing is also helpful when you have somebody who can basically help you advance.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. That's our breakdown of how patrons work, how to use them in a game, and why you would use them in a game. So what we're going to do is take a break, check in with the chat room,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're going to come back. We're going to roundtable some more about patrons and talk about our own experiences in games that have used them and when they've gone bad and all that. But first, Bob is going to tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
Yes, you need to check out The Lounge. Doc
Mm-hmm.
Palindrome finds the best, the brightest, the most fun game designers and sits down to have a cool chat with them. You never know what conversation is going to come up in The Lounge. Booyah.
So other than your mic being super hot, according to the chat room, what else is going on in the chat room?
Yeah, they're enraptured by our conversation. They're in it.
I can never tell if that's good or not. I can never tell if that's like, this is super interesting and everybody's paying attention, or it's like, this is boring as hell. Why are they like,
I think if it was boring as hell, they would tell us to punch it up.
They're not afraid to do that.
No.
Unfortunately, Ange isn't in the chat room, but she brought up a question either today or yesterday as a possible Gnomes 2 articles. And one of them was, what do you do when your players start spinning their wheels with planning and end up basically making a mountain out of a molehill? And this is a perfect time for a patron to step in and goose them in the right direction.
Yes. And again, the patron can help eliminate problems.
Yeah. Because most patrons are also going to have other minions. It doesn't even have to be the patron coming in. Maybe the players are planning something or getting too involved. So Lady Brack just has their seneschal step in and say, by the way, while we're buying all this stuff, maybe you should do this. That's a little heavy-handed, but that sort of thing. In a role-playing situation, you can give the players additional information through the patron. The patron can be a voice box.
I'm going to tell you that many, many episodes ago, we did a whole episode on planning. Like, what's the actual purpose of planning and why it doesn't actually work in role-playing games.
Right.
And that it's actually better. I will summarize, although I will say this, if the episode is old enough, I will revive it for us to do as a Redux episode. But I will say this, actual planning is awful, unfun, and just plain boring. Simulating planning through game mechanics is a far better way to go. Games, and I will give you an example, Knights Black Agents. Knights Black Agents has a skill called preparation. And at some point in the game, when something has happened, a twist or something has come up, you may make a preparation roll to have prepared the thing that you need to solve this problem to be there. So basically what it does is it emulates competence, right? About a plan that doesn't actually exist, but allows the player to feel like that. And the game, the Cortex game Leverage is like the whole game is that, like, basically that. And so is almost every Forged in the Dark game.
Yep.
Right. Forged in the Dark games, no planning, like it's not no planning, minimal planning. You plan the approach.
Yep.
And then you roll and you go, right? And then you have flashback mechanics and stress mechanics and like
Savage Worlds has one like that for the Lengthmar setting, where the players have 5 minutes to discuss what they're going to do. Then each player chooses the skill and describes how they're going to use it, makes a roll. And for every success and advantage, they get like basically a heist token that they can then spend later on when something goes sideways to say, oh no, we knew about that because blank, or, you know, we already had that piece of equipment because we planned ahead of time to do it or whatever, which I think is basically ripping off the leverage mechanic, but it works really well. And we've used it in D&D. We've used it in Barbarians of Lemuria. Any mechanic like that works really well.
Yeah, I will say this. I think emulating planning is better than planning. And I'm a project manager, right? Like I literally plan for a living. One, I can tell you that planning for a living is also excruciating. It's its own level of hell, of which I'm aptly suited for. But in role-playing games, it never works. And I don't know if we can chase down that. I don't know if we can, before the end of the episode, chase down that episode number, because I will do a Redux episode and we can revisit it, because I stand solidly by the points of that episode, and I think it talks about how to manage planning quite well, and the inherent flaws of planning. And I remember I have many 1980s and early 90s horror stories as a teenager trying to plan dungeon crawls with, my friends, making those plans and wanting to just beat my head into the table. So,
But one of the problems with those plannings is that because of the way they fall apart, we've joked about this before, that every thievery mission in D&D starts out as stealth, and within 2 encounters just becomes kill everything in the building, because some game systems don't have good rules for what else to do besides kill things. Yeah,
I mean, again, if you're in the if your system can't support all of that stuff, that's another consideration, right? Like, are you playing a game that is suited for this type of play? Like, if you're playing a Forged in the Dark game, everything you need for doing the job is in the mechanics of the game. Sit back and let the game do the driving. If you're playing a game that doesn't have a lot of skills and is requiring stat checks for a lot of stuff, like it may or may not work. And yes, many heists end in a running gun battle. Yeah. I will cite Heat as Heat is a great example of how you can go from stealth mode to combat mode.
Another movie I haven't seen yet.
Oh my goodness, you've never seen Heat?
It's not on any of the streaming services.
So. We could find that sometime and figure out a way to watch it outside or something.
DVD. Yeah,
I might actually.
That's an enjoyable. Maybe I need to go buy a projector or something. Maybe we just go for the rest of the summer. We just get an outside projector and just put it up on somebody's some outside on somebody's side of their house or something. We just watch movies. Oh, Heat is
We'll
masterful.
we'll route that
I've
into
heard
the
good
after
things.
show.
Yeah. Oh, Heat
gotta
is
say,
masterful.
Every time we say Lady Brack, I keep thinking Space Ghost Coast to Coast. So
Yes.
I did have to put Lady. Look, let me be honest.
I'm pretty sure there is a Lady Brack on the Brack show.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
Let me be honest. I don't spend a lot of time vetting these names, right?
That's all right.
I suck at names, and when I'm on a roll, I make stuff up.
All right, we should jump into part 2, huh?
I'm good for that.
Sure.
Let's do it. All right. So, having wrapped all that up, we'll continue our discussion of patrons, like we do with 3 roundtable questions. The first one is, what games have you used a patron in, or had a patron? So, used it as a GM, or used it as a, or had a patron as a player. I'd like to leave it open. So
right now in Chris's Eberron game, we have several patrons. For the first half of the campaign, the Dark Lantern Spy Organization was one of our patrons, and they provided us with missions and resources, and oftentimes helped to answer questions when we would stumble into something that we weren't quite sure about or didn't get enough information for. We had the Boromar Criminal Gang, which were originally a partial adversary, but had some links to us, and we kind of made them into our patron by finding ways to play them both for and against the Dark Lanterns. And at the end of the first campaign arc, Merrick Stakhanith was a patron of ours, which is really interesting because for the first 2/3 of it, he was our major adversary until we figured out there was something else going on. Yep. And we found a way to make him a patron, and he ended up getting us a lot of resources and things and missions, and even helped us out because eventually we did something that kind of burned our bridges with the Dark Lanterns, and now we had him as our patron for a while. It wasn't just material things. It was often influence, keeping the things we were doing from becoming, problems. When you're running an adventuring party in a city and the bodies start to stack up, you need to have somebody to kind of keep you out of prison. And they all worked really well in different ways. When COVID goes away and we can finally get back to playing, I'm playing in a monthly Savage Sundays game, and we're playing a Rippers game. And in the Rippers game, and in pretty much all the Rippers games, we have a patron in the form of the Rippers organization. We're playing the pre-written modules. And in that one, they're less of an asset. We're going to talk a little bit later on about why they don't work as well as a patron. In my own games, I'm running an Eberron game, and the Dragon Mark houses are some of the patrons. When I run Face Rip Marvel, the players almost always have either S.H.I.E.L.D. or the Avengers as a team. I ran a whole campaign where the players were Avengers Austin. And in the Savage Worlds Lego Agents game that I'm running, Dr. Brick is the person that gave them all their abilities. And so he's their patron that kind of gives them ideas and gets them access to the cool technology they need to stop the bad guys. And all these patrons operate differently. They're not all patrons who are just, here's some stuff. Some of them, like in the Eberron game, have their own agendas that sometimes go against what we want, but to get what we want, we have to work with them a little bit. And sometimes our objectives cause us to come right up against our own patrons. And in some of the games I've run, the players have gotten to the point where they decide, we don't want to work with this person anymore. We're going to go somewhere else. So just keep in mind that some patrons can come from the players. They want something. They're going to search out somebody, and they might try to become a servant of a patroning organization. And as a GM, this is a massive tool for you because you've got a chance to help direct the adventure in a certain way without making it feel like you're railroading it. So, all right. Phil, what are some of the games you've had a patron in?
Yeah, I was really trying to think my way through this. So for sure, back when I ran Corporation, the corporation itself is its own patron, but I also always had a mission handler. So the corporation was a faceless thing, but there was always a mission handler. There was actually a someone, right, to that was the interface to the players. So that was probably my most common form of patron. And I'm trying to think what other games, Bob, we've played in where I've opted for
Did you have a person like that in our witchcraft game? Did we work for an organization?
Or the one in the 90s,
Yeah.
I think there was like somebody that, yeah.
I want to say there's one in there.
Oh, I mean, we played Connex, but Connex, Aegis isn't really, I don't know. Aegis is kind of a patron, and Aegis is a patron. They provide some stuff. They provide some, not as much as you would want them to.
Yeah.
But they definitely make demands of you. They're probably they're not a bad patron because they don't screw you over, but they don't give you as much stuff as you would like, and they ask a lot of you.
Bill, you're running a game where the whole point of the game is to serve a patron. The queen.
Oh, I know. The game hasn't really gone anywhere in a while.
But that is a game where the whole point of the game is you are serving a definite patron in that game.
Yeah, because the queen's running an intelligence agency.
Yeah.
So it's another mission-based game. That's true. It's true.
Yeah. And it's fun, and there's but again, in that one, the way you've run it, this is the game that feels where we're all servants of the queen during musketeer times. But in that game, a lot of her patronage is more about giving us role-playing hooks than giving us just straight up like resources and equipment. That's part of the fun of it.
Yes.
Which is vital.
Yeah, and she's very mission based.
Mm-hmm.
You do get missions and stuff as musketeer like organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Like, I'm going to talk about later. We're going to play. I'm going to start playing Numenera soon, and like that is a game where having a patron might not be bad because that is a weird, strange world.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It is a world that has many, that has a lot of stuff going on in it, and having somebody who can kind of help, guide the players or give the players stuff is not a bad thing. So, yeah, that might be another place. It'll be a thing to at least discuss with the group.
Yeah.
Which actually, if I can just sidetrack for a second. This might be a good time to say this because we didn't say it anywhere else. A patron can be. It doesn't have to be, but I'm always for erring on the side of caution. A patron is probably a worthy session 0 discussion.
Mm-hmm.
To talk about like, hey, I want to put a patron in this game. How do you guys feel about it? You might have a player who's like, cool, patron's fine, but I don't want to be dicked over by them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because,
Yep.
Your friend Mathis is our friend Mathis. Oh, wait and see if Bob remembers that line.
Oh, I know the line. I'm drawing a blank on where it was from.
James Bond. From the new ones.
Right.
Anyway, so it is a worthy session 0. Like, as you're setting up your campaign, you could be like, hey, what do you guys think about having a fixed patron? Right? Like, would you guys be into a patron who, provided X, Y, and Z? And then like some of the negotiation that you can do as a group is like, well, how much of the game is the patron going to call the shots on? Right? Like, is this patron showing up every week with a thing for us to do? Or is this patron going to kind of let us do our thing and occasionally have some demands? Is the patron supporting us while we come up with ideas versus getting top-down missions? Like, that's definitely a thing that at a session 0 level could be negotiated, right? Negotiated between players and GM. And some games players may be like, you know what, we don't want patron. Like, we just want to do it ourselves. And other games, they may totally want a patron, but they may want the one that's like, yeah, you're getting bankrolled from this person and they're expecting you to advance the cause. Mm-hmm. However, you're advancing the cause, right? As opposed to the top down. Okay. Yeah. How about you, Bob?
So way back in the day, we had a D20 Star Wars game, and the PCs we were Rebellion era, weren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, it was Rebellion era.
We were post Order 66.
Yes. And we were basically working for Bail Organa. and we were terrible about keeping that a secret. We would throw that name out. We'd get into a spot and it's like, hey, we work for someone. We know a guy, Bail Organa. Maybe you've heard the name.
Look him up. He's a former senator, Bail Organa.
We started out with a code name. We called him Oregano.
Yes.
And then we stopped. We just screwed the code name. We just dropped his name. It was terrible.
Oh, we were so bad about it. They should have hauled him out.
Yeah.
They should have hauled him out and put
he should have ended
blaster
up dead
bolt in
because
him.
of us. But yeah, what are you gonna do? You know.
And he did, like, he gave us missions.
Yeah.
He gave us transport.
Out with stuff when we needed it. Yeah.
He's kind of a big deal in the Resistance.
Hey, big deal. Jerry left a note in here. I'm actually going to take that and sidestep it just a little bit.
Go ahead.
In the Eberron game that Chris runs, that Jerry already talked about, I'm a warlock, so I literally have a patron of my own. That's baked into the system. When you play a warlock, you have a patron, and mine is an awakened mangrove tree that is part of this group called the Gatekeepers. So I'm on missions for this organization and my person who literally gives me my powers.
I have to say, when we cut our party down for DCC and we're down to individual characters, like the what you call it? First of all, wizards in DCC have a spell called Patron Bond.
Yep.
Which and then they have another one after they've bonded to a patron. They can call the patron for help.
Yep.
It comes with a cost.
Oh yeah.
In true DCC style, right? It comes with a cost. But some pretty cool stuff can happen.
Yeah.
Depending on your patron. And then the gods in DCC can also intervene. And I haven't done it a lot. I haven't done it. And I haven't really pushed anyone on it while everybody's still playing multiple characters. But as we cut down that list, I'm going to strongly encourage anyone who's playing a wizard when we flip over to take Patron Bond and use it, like cast Patron Bond and make your initial bonding to your patron and all that.
Cool.
Because you do get stuff for it. So, yeah, that's cool.
All right, what's the next question?
Jerry.
All right. What should be the role of the patron over the course of a campaign itself? Not just the mission, but the whole campaign.
Sure. So this is just a me thing. I like to get rid of them. I like patrons to help get PCs off the ground and stuff like that. But also, and we talked about this before, as the zoom out technique of a campaign, right? So when we're really zoomed in, the characters are small in power, they are small in scope, and having a patron kind of gives them, like, a little extra advantage. But as we keep zooming out and their problems become bigger and the stakes for what they're doing become bigger, it's entirely possible in the arc of a game that they can just eclipse their patron. Right. So I think that the story arc of phasing out a patron, especially a mortal patron, I think is a cool arc. Right. So the patron finds you, grows you, you eventually become as powerful as they are. And then eventually you may become more powerful than they are. They could still be an ally. And they could be a friend and an NPC in the game. They may no longer need to be your patron, right?
Their patron.
Yeah, you might turn around. They wind up as an asset in your organization at the end. Or as you get powerful enough, you can have something befall them. You could have them turn, right? Like turning a patron when you're really low level. As you know from beginning Shadowrun, turning a patron at really low level is shitty. Turning a patron when you are fairly competent is a storyline, right? Like you're all now 10th level and the patron sells you out, right? This is now a story of revenge, right? Like we will now go and hunt down this patron and exact our revenge. That is a totally valid way to do it. So I guess to sum up, I do like making patrons arcs. I do think that patrons work best early to mid game, and then I like to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly replace them with more powerful patrons, or at that point, the characters are able to be, powerful enough that they require no patronage to operate.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool.
Jer?
All right. I think that patrons are best used when they're sources of information, sources for missions and resources that the players don't normally have otherwise. They can be a source for just the start of the adventure. The patron starts you out. The literal adventure I'm running right now for Eberron started out with the players working for one of their patrons to do something, and over the course of solving that 15-minute adventure, they uncover the next adventure. But to get them where I wanted them to be, the patron put them in that place so they could witness something else. Mm-hmm. So the missions the players go on don't always have to be given to them by the patron, but you could use the patron as an excuse for why are the players there. Why are all the players in the inn when the cloaked stranger comes in? Because they're just finishing up a mission from something else, or because they're giving information to somebody. And this is where the patrons can be a great source for role-playing hooks. If the players need or want something that is strictly cosmetic for their character, from a role-playing standpoint, or a character growth standpoint, or a background standpoint, the patrons could be there for something the players to latch on to. Good players will almost always find other uses for their patrons. We want to break into the bank. We happen to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who works in the bank. I bet the patron knows somebody there, that sort of thing. And that's just one of those minor, we're going to call it a small favor. And as always, the patron can also be working in secret. They might have their own secondary agenda, not something that's going to screw over the players, but something going on that perhaps they're using the players to do something that will set stuff up down the line. Maybe they're actually planning on becoming the next king of the city. And when the present king gets killed, now the patron can step in and help the players get to something. But I agree. You eventually either have to phase them out or find a way for them to evolve with the players, depending on just how much fun the players are having with them. And that's always the big thing with patrons. You always have to keep an eye on your players and see what they think. If they start feeling that they're either being manipulated, then we get into the next question. So we're going to skip that for now. Bob?
Yeah, so, obviously, having a patron that's going to give you some stuff when you need it is a good thing, especially if you're low level, you're just getting started. It's good to have some extra resources to go on a mission or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I overall, when it comes right down to it, I prefer patrons to be there primarily for role-playing and story purposes. Help to build the story, give the players someone to work against, to play off of. You're prepping for the mission. Here's a role-playing opportunity to talk to this patron about what you think you need and why you need it, and convince them to get it for you.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. Yep. Give me some story.
I'll say the other thing that patrons can be useful for is to plug up plot holes. When your players reveal something and you're like, oh crap, I didn't realize that's what's going on in the background. You can quickly have your patron, oh no, your patron's taking care of that while you do this.
I totally had that covered.
Yeah, yes.
They're also a good way to bail out a completely botched adventure, right? Yep. Like everything goes to shit. The players are on the run. They're like, oh, Lord, this is it. We're done for. And then this car pulls up, and it's like, get in, right? And it's like the patron sent, the car. You're going to owe the patron, but, you're going to owe the patron later, but, whatever.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about Honduras? Let's go. Yeah, that's really...
I'd never been to Belize.
We're going to have to get you out of here. Good thing our patron has some, interests, in Bolivia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You kids are going to go spend some time in Rote.
Oh, never been to Rote. That, by the way, is a quick aside, is an inside joke from Bob and I. We played in a Eberron 3-5 game once where after a very bad handling of a encounter, our party, not Bob nor I, burned down an entire bar and like the 50 patrons that were in the bar. And so we very quickly left the city of Rote, never to return and never to admit we had ever been in Rote. So as a running joke between us, we always say that, I've never been to Rote. That was a very bad encounter. That's one of those moments in the game where it's one of those moments in the game where the GM does a thing and you're like, well, guess we're going to have to de-escalate now. And one of the players is like, nope, I'm going for it. And it's like, that's a ready to action. like that ready action's going to go off.
I've been always gun shy of fire. Back in the early 80s, we played GURPS. Our players were in a city under siege, fighting some bad guys. We decided to set fire to our own building to cover our tracks. And then we escaped from the city, and by morning, the city was almost gone.
No,
it was not good. It was very, very bad because the city had a magically focused firefighting group, a bunch of wizards who had the remove fire spell.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that was us, and we left the city.
No.
It was a bad. It went bad. It went very. Yeah, we had to cover the fact that we'd been in the city that didn't exist anymore. So, yeah.
That's awful.
Fire in medieval cities. I'm always wary of that now.
If only we could find the magical suppression unit as they're like sneaking out of the city while it burns. Lord, that's straight up. That's straight up role players right there.
Yes, and that's straight up 14-year-old role players.
Yep. Steal some cheese, leave the burning city. Let's go.
We stole all the horses in the Imperial Guard stable. So we had something to sell once we left the city. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Question 3.
Yeah.
When is a patron more of a liability than an asset?
All right. I'm going to answer this.
Jer, let me clear the way for you on this one.
There are 2 different ways we look at this. Number one, when patrons are doing more of the game than the players, when they're making things too easy or directing the story without character input, when they take all the choices away, then they're bad patrons. When the players get to the point where they feel they don't have any input into what's going on, it's okay for the patron to put them in a difficult situation, but if the players have no choice, or if things are getting too easily resolved, then the patron's more of a liability than an asset. It's time to move on from them. Because then it's just the GM basically playing their own little story, and the players are just along for the ride. Now, the second thing is there becomes a time when when a patron becomes a hindrance or a frustration. And I will talk about the plot point campaign for the present Rippers edition, where which is what we're playing now. This is the pre-published adventure. The Rippers organization is supposed to be this group of basically monster hunters hunting Dracula and all that sort of thing. The way the campaign is written, they are almost always giving us information after we've already screwed up the mission, giving us no resources whatsoever. We're going to go fight a monster that can only be hit by magic weapons, and we have no magic weapons. And oftentimes sending us out with lack of information that as an intelligence agency would be useful to know, like the people we're going to meet are not the bad guys, but the good guys. And it's meant as a role-playing hook, it's meant to kind of have this whole like super secret sneaky spy society. But what it ends up doing is the players don't trust the patron at all. And at this point, we've thought about overthrowing them as a party.
Look, first sign that your patron is a liability is when you've planned to kill them.
Yeah, we planned by like session 5 just what it would take to eliminate the upper level of the group and just disband them, because and I've been in other games like that where it'd be like being in a James Bond game where you never get any gadgets. They're like, okay, Bond, we know that that La Chifra is planning some casino game. Here's $10. Go have fun. And that's the event. That's the end of your support. If you're going to have a patron, they should be helping. They should not be hindering. And the players should feel like there's something useful to having the patron there. Even if the patron's going to screw you over later on, like in apparently Shadowrun games, the players should still feel like they've gotten something out of having that patron that was valuable to them and made it worthwhile being part of it. In Rippers, we've considered switching sides because it's obvious that the bad guys are much better organized and seem to treat their flunkies with more respect than ours does.
Yeah, that's bad.
And that's not the fault of the GM. I've read part of the plot point now. It's just the way the adventure is written. It's basically like, okay, we're going to send you there with no information. Isn't it going to be fun to watch you stumble around and get killed?
Again, I'll go back to our description. What is other than telling you what to do? Yeah. What part of our list? What did the patron provide?
Yep.
Right. Other than direction, because direction is the least in the order to go do something is the least interesting part of the patron.
Now, we have talked to the GM about this and they realize what's going on and they have since rectified that a little bit and had the patron give us some stuff, but it's too little too late at this point. And especially since now the bad guys have infiltrated the organization, so they are actually worth killing. It's another thing entirely. But it's a thing where
a hot mess, man.
But not just Rippers. I mean, I've been in games where I've been in Shadow. One of the reasons I didn't like playing Shadowrun is it always seemed like every mission you were on had a price, and you weren't doing it for your own good. You were doing it because if you don't do it, then what are we playing the game for, kind of thing. And
yeah, I think that the Sprawl does a better job of handling the end of the mission. Like, there's a role you make, and you get to pick. Did you get paid more money? Did you get screwed over? You get to pick which thing does or doesn't happen.
I'm probably going to get hate mail for this, but I think the Sprawl does almost everything better than Shadowrun does.
You know what? People can send you hate mail for that, but I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
The Sprawl is the better version of Shadowrun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sprawl's a lot of fun.
Yeah. The Sprawl is a tremendously fun game, and it emulates the runner/run genre better than Shadowrun does. Yep. Shadowrun has all those things in it. The Sprawl mechanized all those things. And the Sprawl solves the planning problem with the plus intelligence, the plus intel plus gear tag tokens, right? Again, it mechanizes planning.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say this enough, right? Actual planning in role-playing games is awful.
Yes.
Mechanized planning or simulated planning is the way to go. And yes, the Sprawl is easily one of the best runner cyberpunk games out there.
Agreed.
Hamish,
let's talk a second about what Phil's talking about. Is that some of the playbooks and some of the missions allow you during or after the mission to acquire basically intelligence tokens or gear tokens that you can then spend to get more information, have the gear you need, or as a basic patron get out of a jail free card. And some of the playbooks have them built right in, where like my character was the fixer, where I had my little gang that I worked with. And at the end of every mission, I could see if they got this much information for us as part of a group. And technically, that made me their patron.
Yes, mm-hmm. You were basically your gang's patron.
But it worked really well.
The game is super good for it because the playbooks are geared for doing missions and runs. The moves are geared for missions and runs, and it doesn't like planning.
Mm-hmm.
You're like supposed to just start playing with a minimal plan, and it mechanizes how the Mr. Johnson. In fact, it mechanizes both how the initial information you get from the Johnson and how the meetup at the end goes, which are both functions of the mechanics of the game.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes it super excellent. Yeah, I would say if you are like, oh, I'm hot on playing a cyberpunk mission-based game, just go get the Sprawl.
Yeah. And there is a supplement for the Sprawl that adds magic and monsters and all that kind of stuff. If you want to run, if you want to
dump magic,
yeah,
you want to poop magic on top of your awesome setting, go ahead.
Well, that's what Shadowrun did.
Jerry hasn't been here for my past rants about pooping magic onto every genre because people can't leave well enough alone.
This game's great. Now I need a magic supplement for it. Why?
I've heard that.
I don't.
That is one of the 5 reasons I prefer Cyberpunk to Shadowrun. Is I thought Cyberpunk was a perfectly good game, and Shadowrun was let's rift it up. But
magic upon it is like my least favorite. My least favorite. Like, pick a cool genre. Like, we're gonna play. Fighter pilots, magical fighter pilots.
No, wait, magical vampire fighter pilots now. So
or magical pilots that fight zombies. Because then, if we really want to get the trope, like we want to rack up tropes that I really despise.
All right, we got to loop it back into the.
Yeah. Get us back on. Bob's got the broom. Get back.
Yes. All right, Phil. What about you?
Yeah, I think you touched on some of them. I will touch on the thing that if you cannot trust your patron, and again, let me clear this up. If you cannot trust your patron and your patron is constantly screwing you over or selling you out, you have an NPC, not a patron.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
If you think it's a patron and it's actually screwing you over, I think it's a problem. If you want to do the cool arc where your patron's going to eventually sell you out, you need to foreshadow that.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just blindside. I mean, you can, it's just shitty to just blindside the players. Like, if your patron is shifty, you start to build up to it. So that it isn't a total blindside.
Yeah.
Because betrayal of trust in a game, while it is often thought of as cool and edgy, will fuck people up. Especially if players have their own trust issues and bleed into it. I'm one of those people. That kind of blindside will fuck you up and could fuck up your game. So if you want your patron to eventually go bad, foreshadow that stuff. Yep. Right? Have them, making some side deals or doing some shady shit on the side, whatever. And then eventually when they betray you, you'll be like, aha, I knew this guy wasn't on the level.
Yeah.
Now let's go kick his ass. Also, if you're going to have your patron betray the players, make sure the players are at a level where they can exact their revenge, because there is nothing worse than getting screwed over by the patron and the patron remains untouchable.
Yeah.
Right. It's fine if the patron thinks they're untouchable, right? But that's when the players have to show them, no, they're not. Because I will tell you, no matter what campaign you think you're running, if your patron screws your players over and leaves them for dead, your campaign just changed.
Yep.
Yes.
Because your players will be like, I don't care about the rest of the plot of this, campaign. There is only one thing that's happening, and then we can get back to whatever.
But we have to save the kingdom from the undead hordes that are coming in about 12 days. No,
so as a quick story, I once tried to give my players in my heist game, I tried to give them a patron, not a good patron, but more of a pyramid scheme, like blackmailing patron. And when it all went wrong, we stopped playing a game about doing heists and we played a game about hunting and killing that guy.
We took a campaign that was pretty much Ocean's 11 fun and turned it into Reservoir Dogs.
Right down to putting that guy face down on a dock in the Bahamas and putting a bullet in the back of his head as you took his money and walked off with it. Like, it was a brutal ending to a game. But it was exactly the player response for screwing them over. Mm-hmm. Like, they went from, it was not going to be a, oh, well, guess we got screwed over. I guess we'll just, work on our next heist. It was like, clear the table. We have a new objective now. We're going to war. So yes, if you're going to have a patron, make them, especially when you're low level, they're good. They don't have to be like the most honorable people, but they're good to the players. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to have them betray, do it later. And if you're not doing those things, then you're really fucking the players over. And that's where I think they become a liability.
Yeah.
Bobo.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more I can add to the to that question. You guys pretty much hit it all. I agree with all of that because you especially the screwing. If you're gonna have your patron turn, you got to do it right. Yeah. Don't just flip them. You're gonna have a big problem on your hands.
The blind side is only cool in Survivor. Right, it sucks everywhere else. And it's only cool in Survivor because you're watching from the outside. All right, cool. That's our discussion on patrons. We hope the next time you put a patron in your game, you will have found this information helpful. And let's see what the chat room's doing before we check out of here and head over to the conversation corner.
Yeah, we're all good here.
We're all tight.
How are you?
I don't know. Maybe they like the topic. I don't know if they did or didn't.
Yeah. Jerry mentioned a topic to pin, so I did that to
good. What do we got?
Come back and talk about recurring villains properly.
Oh, I got some feels about recurring villains.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, we can do recurring villains sometime. That's fun.
Yeah.
Also, and I don't know if this is a full topic, but as a GM and also as a player, I've seen this occur. What happens when the players hate the NPC that the GM is obviously putting forward as like their mouthpiece or as the stuff? Like the GM thinks this is a character that everybody's going to love, and everybody hates that character. What do you do? That's a good topic.
Everybody's like, "Oh, fucking Elminster again! God damn!"
There's literally only one thing you can do, right?
I forgot about fucking Elminster, but he's on my hit list.
I all I can think of is that stupid talking skull in the one D&D.
The head of Varellus. The severed head of Varellus in Pyramid of Shadows. Oh man!
I actually have a standing order that if the word Elminster is mentioned at the table, I will leave the game. If he shows up, if people talk about him, if the NPCs show up, if any of the NPCs from any of the books show up, I'm gone in Forgotten Realms. I'm just leaving the table. You can call me back when they're gone. I'm done.
The severed head of Varellus was the most obnoxious NPC. We kept her with us. I think we kept her in a backpack after a while because none of us wanted to have to deal with her. It was the most insufferable NPC.
All I remember was that it was there other than to annoy you. I think she had information.
No, she had information. She was just insufferable. Yeah. Like the whole time it was like I wanted to just put her on the end of my glaive and just walk around with her like on the pike, but we couldn't. And I remember when we were done with the adventure, either something happens and her spirit leaves the head, but I remember throwing away the head and being very happy, like that Varellus was gone. Oh, yeah, obnoxious. Like, yeah, the problem is compounded if the players hate the NPC and the GM loves him.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
That's the worst.
I've played in many campaigns where it's obvious the GM loves this NPC. Now, in my younger days, we just killed that NPC outright. And in one case, in one case, we killed the NPC, hunted down their family, burnt their house to the ground, and then salted the land. But that kind of thing happens.
If you've ever read Knights of the Dinner Table, it's not a GM NPC, but Brian the Wizard had a familiar that was a brownie. I think it was Haji the Brownie or something, and it is like awful.
Yeah, that's a great story arc, though.
It's the worst.
It's a lot of fun.
NPC. And the rest of the party and the DM loathes it. Like they eventually banned it from the game, but he had like a puppet. Like there was a puppet he brought up every time. Oh, it's great.
I played in a fantasy trip game online where the GM had us encounter a pair of NPCs that he thought that she was going to be the ravishingly beautiful, everybody's going to fall in love with her character, and she was horribly annoying to the point that it became my character's goal to hunt her down and kill her for forcibly reading my mind. And, and he had her die off screen just so we could get back to the campaign because the party had gone off the story. So,
I mean, you've touched on the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kill them all.
Get rid of them.
It was not satisfying, but it was still okay. But yeah.
It is really bad when if you are a GM and you are too beholden to anything in the game, that's an instant problem.
That's my first piece of advice to any new GMs. I tell them, remember, two things. Number one is the characters are not the most important people in the world, but they are the most important people in the story you're about to tell. And number two, there is nothing in your game more important or more permanent than the players. So if they decide that they don't want to do something, don't keep trying to force them into that box. Move them on. If they don't want to go to Dragon Mountain, don't keep putting the mountain in front of them. Just write it off and do something else.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah.
Oh, you traveled the whole way. Guess what? Oh, you're at Dragon Mountain.
That may have
that's Schrodinger's. That's Schrodinger's trail.
Yeah. That's true.
All right, we should roll into the conversation corner, then, eh?
Should indeed.
I should just. I will tell Seth I no longer kill NPCs just because they're annoying. By the way, I was like 15 at the time. We don't do that anymore. All right.
You've learned. You've grown up.
Yes. All right, conversation corner. Yay. Let's see. Just reading the chat room real quick. All right.
Okay,
so,
kids.
You want me to start?
Sure.
All right. What have we been doing this week? Last week we played Call of Cthulhu: Down Darker Trails. Still an excellent Call of Cthulhu game. It's Pulp Cthulhu, so it's a bit more Western, but still always tense and dangerous. I'm really surprised by how well that game works at making you feel competent while at the same time making you feel afraid for your character.
I mean, we're in the thick of it now. Like we're inside the Snakeman layer. We've gone from, I wonder what that is, to we're in the thick of it now.
That's a tough line to walk as a GM. How to write a game and play it and run a game. The players feel we can do this, and also, oh my God, we're all going to die a few seconds from now, without having hopelessness in the middle of that.
I think on a good note, I think we've done a really good job of being realistic. Yes. I don't think we've been foolhardy. When we've fought things, we've been smart about it, and there have been times where we're like, you know what? We should not pursue this. It's getting dark. We should just go back to town. We've not done anything dumb to get ourselves seriously killed. We have not done things like, you know what? I'll go off and check by myself.
Yes, in the dark.
Yeah, we've been very good about staying together and just moving through the story. It's good.
The next thing we did was Sunday night. I did wrapped up the previous story arc for Savage Eberron, which was a 6-week 2-part set of murder mysteries. Schmidt's in that one, playing Saphira, the consulting detective. And that was fun to see how the players completely they solved the mystery. They brought a conclusion to the story, did not come to the same conclusion I was expecting, did not tie up all their loose ends, and didn't get all the information. So I've got to put that all away for later adventures, which is going to be fun. But we wrapped it up in a nice way. And that's a definite situation where we had some patrons going on. I've been enjoying watching The Next Generation. I really liked last week's episode with where everybody got turned into kids.
Rascals.
Episode. Rascals was a great episode with some really weird ramifications that they touched on but didn't go into too much, which was good. They avoided the creepy factor, which I was so glad they did. But there was some really just the point where Keiko's daughter looks at her and says, no, I want my mommy, was just heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
At the recommendation of a bunch of other people, I started watching The Misfits, which is a weird British superhero show about delinquents, catching the elementary and the old guard. And also watched Guns Akimbo. If you have not seen Guns Akimbo, this is a bonkers movie where Daniel Radcliffe plays an internet troll who gets guns bolted to his hands, and he has 24 hours to hunt down and kill somebody else who's trying to hunt down and kill him, all while dressed in a bathrobe and big fuzzy slippers.
All right.
It is the kind of bonkers role that Daniel Radcliffe could pull off.
Oh, very well, very well.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'll leave Minecraft to Bob.
Yeah, Minecraft has been fun. Season 5 is rolling along. I did a bunch of cosmetic type things because that's what I like to do. I like to landscape and build aesthetically pleasing things and stuff like that. And some of it doesn't even matter. Like, we all have flight rings now, so we all fly everywhere. But I made a path that leads up the side of the hill to the old bone structure. It was like a skeletal remain that we put our nether portal inside of. And it's like, nobody's going to walk that path. Nobody. Ever. We're all going to fly in. But it looks cool. So.
No, it looks really nice, actually. And you actually did a really nice job because I popped into the game and all of a sudden I was like, oh, man, I'm like, this whole area is like done up and the street lights and you did some really nice marble stairs leading upward. I was like, I'm like, that's
corrected. Andy is currently literally walking that path right now.
Okay. That's funny.
Thanks for walking on my path, Andy. I appreciate it. That's good.
Aw, that's somehow sweet. Like,
but yeah, that's it's been fun. Looking forward to the next thing that we roll out, and I need to do a little bit more wandering about. We still haven't found some stuff that we usually have by now, meaning in this case, chorus fruits, so that we can make capsules, so that we can steal some stuff.
I think this weekend we should just
I've looted 9 desert temples and have not found it.
Yeah,
let's
we
just
should
go to
probably
the
make an
end
end
this
run
weekend.
soon.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we should put it on the chat. We should start getting people armed up. I mean, not that it takes a lot of work, but we do have to actually go in and
it's not that far. It's like not a hike to go to the end portal. It's like super close. It's like 600 clicks away from our base.
Yeah. We should just get ready to do it. I mean, go and we'll go clean out the end, kill the dragon, get the dragon egg, which will assure us all flight power.
Yep.
We can put that right up in the middle of town.
Yep. In addition to that,
it's about time. We could use chorus fruit. We could use end stone. I could upgrade my armor to end stone armor.
There you go.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I started reading Peace Talks, the latest Dresden Files book. I actually took a page out of Phil's book and disconnected early yesterday and spent like a half an hour, 45 minutes reading with no screen in front of my face before I went to bed.
Right?
And that was nice. But I need to carve out time to read. I have a bazillion books and a huge stack of physical books that I need to finish. So that is a thing. And of course, keeping up with Next Generation. I'm actually debating if I'm going to join the watch party tonight because I'm beat. I've been yawning the whole show. I know you've seen me put my hand up in front of my face or not, just yawn straight up.
I mean, it's not like you haven't seen all these episodes.
No. So, but it's nice hanging out with everybody, especially the noobs who haven't seen these before. So,
I know it's so much fun to watch with the new people.
Yeah,
like it is really enjoyable to actually see the show through their eyes and talk about it later.
Yeah. What was the other thing? I was just thinking of something else, and it's gone. So yeah, so that's me for now. What about you, Phil?
I'm obviously also playing Minecraft. I'm just at the point where I want a new project, like a big project.
Yeah.
I got us some things done early on in the game, and now I'm like, I want a big project. So I was talking to Tony about it earlier today, and Mike and Tony have kind of been doing the power thing. So I haven't really, I didn't really want to, I kind of want to do nuclear tech, but like Mike D's really working on it. I might work on it later. So I'm going to do the large scale ore production. I've decided I'm going to make a ore processing facility for us so that no matter where we're getting our ores, we will send them to one place, have them processed and put into storage. So I'm going to build something large and ridiculous. I haven't decided where it's going to be yet, but it will be both large and ridiculous. And I'm looking forward to getting it in place. I'm going to go scout out a place. I'm not going to prefab it. I don't want a prefab place. I'm going to make my own. I'm going to kind of pattern it off of a design I did in a previous game where I did a subfloor and then like a regular floor so that I had room to run conduits and everything under the floor and make everything nice and neat and clean. And I know exactly what I want to do. And I don't care because we're like, with all of us working cooperatively, doing really large scale projects is easy because everybody's collecting resources. And if I, suddenly need more stone or whatever, 5 people will run out and cut down a mountain.
Yeah.
Dump it in a chest. So I'm going to do something big and large and industrial because those are things I really dig doing. So I'm going to do that. And so that's Minecraft. Next gen, I actually was working on the end of the list. I actually added more episodes. So we originally were at 60. We're like at 65 or 6 now. I added a few episodes in because there were certain ones I wanted to watch for the watch party. And at one point I had like a really big gap where it was going to be like you had to watch 7 or 8 episodes in a week. And I was like, that's too much. I'm like, we'll do a watch party on a couple of these episodes. Not that they're critical ones that that I super loved and wanted everybody to see, but I was like, these are decent enough episodes. We'll watch these episodes. I'll add an extra week to the calendar, and I redistributed the rest of season 6 and 7. And I almost missed a really important season 7 episode. I'll just name it for Bob because I think he'll know the episode Parallels. The one with Worf. He's on his way home from the Batleth tournament.
Nah,
Never mind.
Enough. Yeah.
Leave it there. Ooh. Anyway, it's a really good episode. I almost left it out and I was like, holy shit. So anyway, I fixed it up. I got that all together. So I've been watching them as well. I'm looking forward to this week because the 2 that we're watching tonight are super intense. And like I said, one of my top 10 favorite episodes is the last one for the week, which is Tapestries. That's an excellent episode as well. We played some Forbidden Lands before, early last week. That's always fun. For me, that's a set good time. And we're in the middle of fighting some trolls, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We all got together for breakfast on Saturday morning.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
When I say got together for breakfast, we all picked up breakfast, drove out to a park, sat in a socially distanced circle, ate our breakfast, sat with our masks on, and chatted with each other for a few hours. We were very safe about the whole thing. But it was nice to see you guys all in person. But I also realized I'm weird now with people in person. I'm so not used to hanging out with people that it always feels weird when we're done. We ended because we got to a certain part of the day and it was hot and we'd all been sitting outside or something. And Bob's like, okay, I'm done. And he just gets up. And as soon as he did, everybody else is like, oh, I guess the call's over, right? Everybody just gets up and starts saying goodbye to each other.
Yep.
But I was talking to Chris, as I was getting ready to leave, and I was just it was so ham-fisted. And I was just like, what is wrong with me? I have lost face-to-face communication to some extent.
Well, part of it's because almost everything we do, even on face-to-face, is a planned event of some sort. It's either going to be a podcast or a game, or we're getting together to watch a TV show or something. So it's a fixed end. Where that was, okay, it's time for us to all break apart and go our separate ways. And it was just kind of because, all right, we were kind of still mid-conversation. We just hit a lull when somebody's like, I think it's time to go because we're all getting hot.
It was Bob.
I had to pee. That's why I had to get up.
I knew why. I just,
Yeah, it's okay.
But it's just one of these things where we've kind of lost the like you're right. We've lost the how to wind a conversation down and be like, hey, you know what? I think I'm gonna have to take a leak soon. We should, anybody mind if we wrap this up or I take off or whatever?
The conversation enders are all weird and awkward. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll see you around. Yeah, and also with you.
Right.
What?
Yeah, yes. That's exactly it.
It's just weird. Mm-hmm. The last thing it was great to see everybody hang out and everything, but it's really funny how the transition things I fumble through. The conversation, like sitting and talking, was perfectly normal, but the hellos and the goodbyes are really weird. All right, so the last thing we were gonna play Icons on Sunday, and to be honest, I was happy enough with the Icons game, but not super excited. And I think we talked about it before. I hadn't been feeling very creative or very passionate about anything. And got onto the call with Tony and Glenn and Bob, and we just didn't play Icons. We sat around and talked for a couple hours, which was awesome. But partway through it, I'm like, I don't think we're playing Icons anymore, guys. Does anyone want to play something different? And, we trucked around through a bunch of ideas for games. And I think it was Glenn who threw out, he's like, how about Numenera? And I was like, yeah, I would run Numenera. Numenera is it's a big book game, 400 page, 8.5 by 11, but the rules aren't complicated. We did an EP on the show last year. And as I recall, we had a good time with it, Bob.
Yep.
So I was like, you know what? I would be interested in running it. I've always thought the premise was really neat. I've only ever played it. I've never had a chance to run it. And I love Monty Cook games, right? I mean, I love that whole crew. And it's a chance to actually try the game out and do some stuff with it and put my own spin on it. And I was like, okay, I'm excited. I'm excited to actually, I'm excited to read the book and run the game. And so I very quickly on Amazon ordered the first of the two books, the Discovery, and came in. So now I can read it without violating my screen rules, because I can read the physical copy now. And I got 2 weeks to get ready for character gen and some basic session 0 stuff, which I'm all for. Right, I'm ready to. I'm in for a challenge. I know it's a 400 page book, but I don't have to read every page. A lot of it's character gen stuff, and I get it. There's a big world section because that's cool, but I dig Numenera, and I just haven't had a chance to run it. So I've been talking to Gator about it a bit. I just on Twitter pinged out that I was going to play it. Darcy and Sean K. Reynolds dropped me off some advice, and as I recall, we have episodes of a podcast all about the Ninth World that are in the archives. That's all. I was like, oh well, now I could brush up on my Ninth World episodes and get schooled. So I'm excited. It's a game that I think will work really well with this group. It's a game that will totally work well with Tony, because it's as out there as Tony is. It won't be a game that'll hinder him. So I'm psyched. I'm looking forward to it. And it does the thing I really like, which is I'm not a huge fan of magic, as we know, right? Poop on things with magic. But the idea of making a fantasy world based on really high concept science stuff really appeals to me, right? The idea that this was created as a, because of the interaction with a singularity, or this was created because, this is, I don't know, quantum folding, whatever, pick a pseudoscience or actual science thing. This is a result of genetic engineering, whatever. That appeals to me. That's my kind of magic. So I'm psyched. I'm excited to get started on it. Yeah, me too. And we had a lot of trouble getting icons off the ground, and it was like in the middle of the pandemic, and it's okay. I mean, these things happen. At some point, we're going to do an episode about failing games. And I don't mean failing games as games that peter out, although that could be part of it. But I'm talking about playing through a game and like figuring out if it's going to take or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
My 4-game rule. I can usually shake out a game in four sessions, whether it's going to make it or not. So, yeah. Anyway, that's me.
Cool.
I think we're pretty close to the allotted hour, are we not? Cool. Then with no further ado, let's jump into the patron shoutouts.
Yay. Patreon shoutouts. Thank you to Brandon Barnes, the Old School DM, Sean Merwin, the Mad Wizard, Troy Sandlin, Will Doyle, Zach Goins, Chris Constantine, Cindy Moore, Eric Mengi, and Eric Simon. And thanks to everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time. Hello, Queen. Come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with the other listeners in the awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
If you cannot make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts. And take a listen to some of the shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Poststone Obsidian, the FM Gamers, Hannah's Talking Games, the Gnome Cast, John Who Hustle, She's a Super Geek, and Bonus Experience. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After your patron has given you valuable information and items, and before you start your mission, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly at mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on Twitter. The show in the network is at Misdirected He's at Robert M. Everson while he's yawning. He's GM Gerrymander, full of ice cream. And I, who is still in desperate need of a cup of coffee, but is probably not going to get one this late at night, is DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Down with D&D, and Panda Stocking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhenghu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhenghu Hustle. And Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Down with D&D, and Panda Stocking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Panda's Talking Games bonus outtakes, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.